welcome to the Golden Boot podcast. Tonight we are joined by Long Island University head coach Ron Cooper. Coach, how you doing this evening?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So just to start out, why don't you introduce everybody to who you are and kind of give just like a brief summary of pretty much everywhere you've been?
Everywhere. Wow. Well, my name is Ron Cooper. I am the head football coach at Long Island University. I started off years ago. This is my 40th season, and started off years ago at Appalachian State after I played as a graduate assistant. I was a graduate assistant for a young coach at that time named Mac Brown, who's now been at North Carolina in Texas. Then was able to go from there to finish my graduate assistantship at the University of Minnesota. Lou Holtz, who at that time took over University of Minnesota. I was a GAPM, so very fortunate my first couple of years. Then I went on to be a full-time coach at some smaller schools, Austin Peay, defensive coordinator at one time at Murray State in Kentucky. Got my first Division 1A job at East Carolina. And right after that, I was real hot as a young coach. I became a defensive coordinator after that at UNLV. And then Lou Holtz got the Notre Dame job, and he hired me back. And so I became his assistant head coach there at Notre Dame. And after that, he started a young head coaching career, my first one that I had, which was Eastern Michigan. I was fortunate enough to have a young quarterback to win named Charlie Batch. And I got the Louisville head coaching job from there. I was there 3 seasons. You know how things go as a head coach. Didn't work out. Wish it would have, but it was for the best. And I then went to Alabama A&M. My parents had taught there 40 years. I grew up on that campus. They offered me the head coaching job, so I was there. Got tired after about 4 seasons. Said it was time to get back in the big time, and went up to Wisconsin with Barry Alvarez. I'd known him from my Notre Dame years. And Jackie Sherrill then offered me the D coordinating job at Mississippi State. That's where I started my SEC run from Mississippi State to South Carolina to LSU, from LSU to pro football for a little bit. Then I had some time after pro football at Florida International, South Florida, and then got back into the SEC mode with Texas A&M, Arkansas, then finished up at Alabama. So it's been a good run.
The fact that you were able to pop those answers off like that is beyond impressive.
He knew every stop.
I can go through my life. It's part of what we do. So every stop has its own memories, own players, and it's been good.
Absolutely. So to start out, you have an extensive history of coaching at many prestigious schools. How has that played a part in how you view your job as a head coach now?
Well, I'm really excited about coaching again on this level. The guys are hungry. The guys want to be coached. You'd like for them all to want to play pro football, but they all want to get a degree, want to be successful. And if you get a chance to play pro football, they want to. But I'm enjoying it. We're not as big and fast, but at the same time, each team can only put 11 on the field, and coaching ball is ball. I've had just as many thrills here as I did when I coached at LSU or a Notre Dame.
Okay. So you named off a bunch of legends in the coaching profession. Who were your biggest coaching influences and mentors?
Oh, wow. Every one of those guys touched me in a certain way. When I was at South Carolina, I'd heard so much about Steve Spurrier, and I'd watched him over the years. Competed against him a couple of times. I was at Notre Dame, and he was at Florida. We played him in the Sugar Bowl. But then was able to go back, and he retained me on the staff at South Carolina. And I was able to work there for him for 3 seasons. And I saw a different way of doing it, He's a great football coach. He's a great family man. He understands the importance of your kids and going home. Probably my kids probably had the best time of their life during that time. And then I was able to work, for Lou Holtz a couple of times. Coach Holtz hired me as a young coach at Minnesota. So 22 years old, sitting in a meeting with him. Got a chance to then be with him at Notre Dame, where we won a lot of great games. And then after Notre Dame, I got a chance, after Mississippi State, I got a chance to go back with him at South Carolina before before he retired. So it's been a good run. Young coach, in a meeting room with a young Mac Brown, in a meeting room with a Barry Alvarez, in a meeting room with Les Miles, and of course Nick Saban. I've seen Jackie Sherrill, who's probably the top recruiter that could go in a home and have parents melt out of his hands. So I've been blessed, to see a whole lot, and got my own way of doing things, but I was definitely influenced by a lot of different coaches.
Okay. So you mentioned LSU, 2011 at LSU, you had 8 defensive backs that went on to play in the NFL, which is almost unheard of. What was your biggest takeaway from that season?
I had a group of guys that loved to play, that loved to compete. When you take and you put a Mo Claiborne and a Tyrann Mathieu, together, and at the same time you had Eric Reed, and just as the backups that year with Jalen Collins, all those guys that went on, Brandon Taylor, all those guys that went on to play in the NFL, Ron Brooks, all those guys had one thing in common, and that they didn't flinch. They wanted to be special. They thought they were good. When things didn't go their way, they knew how to operate and how to get out of it. And when I say get out of it, always used to say have amnesia. I remember talking to a couple of my players saying, you got to be able to forget, And when I was hard on them, they say, Coach, I don't remember doing that. I forgot, So it was a good time coaching those guys. And, off that defense, that year, we lost to Alabama in the national championship, beat them the first time around. But that year itself was special. I want to say we were probably in the top scoring defense in the nation and the top yards per play defense in the nation. But it was fun. But we coached defense with 3 guys, me, Brick Haley, and John Chavis. We're the 3 full-time coaches. Coach Miles Bleeding, a special teams coordinator. We had our QCs, but it wasn't a staff where we had 5 coaches coaching. I coached the secondary, he coached the linebackers, and Brick Haley coached the D-line. And we won a lot of games during that time.
I gotcha. So when you ended up leaving LSU to go to the Buccaneers, how tough of a decision was that for you to leave college and go to the pros?
I thought it was time. That year I had probably 3 NFL offers. I thought the NFL would be a little bit different. I am a hands-on coach.
Mm-hmm.
When I say hands-on, meaning this is how we do it. This is how we read. Here's how we play, whether I'm teaching 2-man, bump and run, or anything else. And pro ball, it was sort of like you needed to figure out a way how each individual young man wanted to get better. It was fun, but it's not college ball. There are a lot of guys. I have buddies that have gone there and stayed, but I tried it. I liked it. I enjoyed it, but I decided that I work better with 18 to 22-year-olds.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense.
Okay. So tell us the story of how you ended up becoming the head coach at Long Island University, and what are the biggest differences, going from working at a Power 5 school to being the head coach at an FCS school?
Yeah. The athletic director at the time, Bill Martinall, Bill and I met. I had been a GA for Lou Holtz again at Minnesota. Coach Holtz took the Minnesota job. The Notre Dame job. I was doing my young coaching, the Austin Peay's and Murray Austin Peay at the time, and I worked the football camp. And the athletic director, Bill Martinall, who was the athletic director, he's now one of the vice presidents. Bill actually was standing on one of the steps, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing after you graduate?" He said, "Well, I want to go to get a master's." I said, "We're looking for a graduate assistant at Austin Peay." And he says, "I'll take the job." So he became the Austin Peay graduate assistant, eventually strength coach.
Wow.
After a few years, he went to Notre Dame, became an assistant strength coach. I went back there to work. So we became friends back in our early 20s. And he and I talked, we probably talked for over a year about the possibilities. I didn't know if it was the right thing for me. I'd never lived in this part of the country. And football, at the time, they just moved to Division I. I think it was one of the longest losing streaks or going without a Division I win And so I looked at it, thought about it, talked about it. I was at Alabama at the time. I talked to Coach Saban about it. And then I felt like, this was something that I needed to do again. I needed to be a head coach. I needed to build the rat race of NILs and everything else, where you were paying them to play now. I decided that this was the best move for me. And it's been fun. I love the place here. I love the kids. And when you're talking about building something, we're not building something, that's just going to fall in a hurry. We're building something that's going to last. And we're looking forward to doing some special things. And again, getting back on track this year and figuring out a way, to get that 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th win.
I gotcha. So I know you said you're a hands-on coach, but how would you describe, since it's been a few years since you have been a head coach? I mean, I know you've been there now for a few seasons, but in terms of coming back to it, so like, what is your maybe a newfound coaching philosophy that you have for these guys?
Yeah, my last year I was able to sit in a room as a senior analyst at Alabama, and I've known Coach Saban for a long time. Actually, when I was the head coach of Louisville, he was the head coach of Michigan State. We actually beat him up there. And then we communicated for years on assistants he may have hired. And so when I had the opportunity to sit in a room with him, and now, as a guy in my late 50s, listening to him, I probably took more notes that year. And there's no reason, there's nothing besides hard work, dedication, and understanding of the game and people to why he won like he won. So it was fun seeing it. It was probably meant to be in my eyes, because I found a newfound love for what to do and when to do it and how to do it. The organization of practice, recruiting, and everything involved was in place there. Not that we have it all in place. They're dealing with something more than a lot of our schools have, and that's money. But on our scale, I can do it and choose the things that I learned from him that were great. Going back to my LSU days, what I saw. Going back to my Texas A&M, Arkansas, my Lou Holtz days at South Carolina, Notre Dame, and sort of listen and say, you know what, I've seen a lot of guys do it, and I've seen a lot of guys do it in a really good fashion. And I've got my own way of thinking right now, and I know we're doing the right thing for our young men.
Gotcha.
So, what are your short-term goals for the 2024 season? I know you've had some struggles along the way, but tell us what your expectations are for this year and what the long-term goal is.
Well, my first year, our non-conference schedule every year starts the season off. And then you probably saw our schedule last year where we were at Miami of Ohio, then we went to Baylor,
Mm-hmm.
Then Brian, and then and so we're sometimes beat up by the time we get to conference play.
Sure.
In my first year, we went on a little streak and won, 4 in a row. And this past year, 5 in a row. And in the past year, we won 4 conference games. So the first thing would be to go into the season with trying to get a non-conference win.
Mm-hmm.
And after we get one win, let's play the next week. Albany is a great program. They were in the semifinals of the national championship on this level. They're still rated in the top 20. On the level that I've been at, this is probably equal to, a smaller school, a Louisiana Monroe playing a Alabama.
Sure.
But on this level, it isn't that. I've been to those. It isn't that. The difference between who they're playing with and who we're playing with is closer than when I was at LSU and we played Division I Louisiana Monroe. So I want to play well. I want to play mistake-free. I want to play hard. I don't want to turn it over. I want to stop the run and run the ball. And if we do that, I think I'll look up in the fourth quarter and we'll be in a game, and let's see what happens. And as we move forward from there, the week after that, we play TCU. I'm not looking ahead to that, but that's to take our players down to the hostile environment with thousands of people. But then we come back and we play Lehigh, Rhode Island, and Villanova. which are all still good schools.
Mhm.
They're not our conference schools, but they're all still good schools. And so let's try to come out with a winning record going into conference play. And if we do that, we have a good chance of having a great season. Not a good season, but a great season. So I'll know more. I don't know much about Albany. Is that they've got transfers in, lost a bunch of guys, and they got coaches that have been around. They're well coached, and they'll be ready to go.
Okay.
So, for people that don't watch LIU, can you name some players for them to look out for? Somebody that's going to pique their interest and have stood out in camp that are going to take the nation.
We've got a transfer defensive line from Florida State, Lil McCormick. That's 290 pounds. That's hard to move, and that I look forward to watching him play. We've got a group of guys that are new in the secondary. You know, Todd Bowles Jr., who his dad's the head coach of the Bucks, is starting at safety for us. That he's a Rutgers transfer that is looking forward to finally getting on the field. But there's a couple of freshman wideouts, redshirt freshmen or freshman sophomore wideouts, in Corey Nichols and Avion Smith-Mack. Great body control, and they both can fly. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see how good their guys can cover. I'm probably pretty sure they'll say, we'll see how good the offensive line can protect. So it'll be a good game, a good matchup. I know they've got a good plan. We've got a good plan. We're all working on it right now, and we'll see what happens Saturday evening.
Okay.
Okay. So I always have to ask, you know, you're on that long bus ride home. It's the dark of the night after a game where your team just didn't have it and kind of got taken advantage of. Your thoughts start to wonder about, why am I doing this? Who is the one person that you're going to call that's going to get your mind back right?
Well, I always call my wife. We talk. If she's not sitting there beside me, I'll always call her. And then really what I like, the truth about the matter is, in this game, in the game of football, the best thing about it is you get a chance to do it the next week, win or lose. And I have never in my life, you know, I look at it and says, I've been 40 years and made a great living, and I've never worked a day. And so it's fun what I do. I enjoy it. And I wish everybody, or I hope that everybody can enjoy their job and look at it over time and say, it really was a fun life and an opportunity to meet thousands of young men between 18 to 22 years old and influence them in a positive way. And with social media these days, it's easy to look and see guys that I coached in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And I see the type men they've become, the type fathers, business owners, leaders. I can look back and see the guys that played pro football, but then the guys that are out of pro football right now. And, you know, I think of Patrick Peterson, who I just saw him on social media where he was in Spain, to where that guy's had a great career. He played for me. I was fortunate to be around one of the greatest defensive backs ever. And I look at him and I say, boy, the man that he's turned into, so much different, but the same as the man I saw at 19 years old.
Okay. So you already addressed playing Albany this weekend, but it's game one of the season. What is your team? What mindset are you instilling in them this week leading up to this big game Saturday?
Well, I showed them some clips tonight of Albany special teams.
Okay.
You can always look at special teams and see how hard a team plays.
Mm-hmm.
And I always use it. You can look at their extra point and field goal block, because after extra point and field goal block, it's usually after they've had a big play or a touchdown or a stop on third down with a chance to kick a field goal. And I watched that unit to see how good of a players or how good of a team, how well they're coached. And they get after it when they're rushing the PAT field goal, which is usually the lowest time because it's after a score. And I showed them clips of that, and I showed them clips of how they move and how they get after it on special teams. And the game is won and lost on offense, defense, and special teams. And usually the team that wins two out of those three phases wins the game. So we've got to play great Saturday night on special teams. We've got to win the special teams battle. It's 11 on 11. And then we got to see how it goes offense and defense and try not to beat ourselves.
I like it. Well, Coach, this is going to be the last question we ask you tonight, but this is it. Give us a recruiting pitch to all the young players they'll be watching tonight, because that's who we aim to hit with our videos, or like the younger athletes.
Well,
why LIU?
Well, if you want a great education, since I've been here, we've had, counting the first semester, every football player that stayed here through their senior year, the graduation rate is 100%. So if you come to school here, you're going to get a great degree from a great university. That's going to mean something. It's a private school, but you're going to get a great degree. And we have not had one football player that stayed through his senior year that hadn't graduated. And we've brought some guys in from junior college over the last couple of years that if they went somewhere else probably couldn't say it. But there's a 100% graduation rate here with the football players. Number two, it's a great environment. You're around great people. It's a great university, beautiful campus. You're on Long Island. You're close to the Hamptons. Go the other way, you're 20 miles from the city. Our guys get to experience life. They don't just get to experience one little small country area. They get to experience life, and it's safe, and they have a great time.
There you go. I mean, if I was 18 right now, I'd want to come play for you.
Here's a pen. Let's sign.
Let's do it.
So,
Coach,
Cody kind of fed to you a little bit. I do have one more question here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So at LSU in 2011, you had a special player that had a special nickname. How do you feel about one of your players making an animal famous? Because until that point, I had never heard of a honey badger.
I tell you what, here's the honest truth, and I remember it. We were playing at West Virginia, and they know what a honey badger is, I guess. And the PA announcer, after he made a couple of plays, I don't know where it came from, called him the honey badger. Tyrann Mathieu is mad on the bus. Got to catch a bus out of West Virginia to get to Pittsburgh, somewhere to fly out. And he's upset. And John Chaves, the defensive coordinator, takes his iPad, and we Google honey badger. And we looked up that animal. And we were like, wow, look what they're calling him. That getting after it, fighting, scratching, biting, and the smallest animal there is, but he was getting after it. We called Tyrann up to the front of the bus. We said, Tyrann, this is what they called me. And he says, oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'll take that. And it has stuck since that time. But there was nothing to where the teammates didn't know it. It all started at West Virginia.
Wow. That's awesome.
Wild.
That really is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, stories like that we live for.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. Very true. Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We definitely wish you nothing but the best this season. We hope to have you on again, actually, at some point this year. Definitely get an update.
Sounds great.
So, yeah, have a blessed night. Best of luck Saturday, and we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.